Fetisov for the Devils, plays it cross ice into the far corner. Matteau swoops in to intercept. Matteau behind the net, swings it in front. He scores! Matteau! 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 Stefan Matteau! And the Rangers have one more hill to climb, baby! But it's Mount Vancouver! The Rangers are headed to the final!
And it's close to Rangers season. This is the 5th episode of the Tony D Pod, and I am joined by my good friend, the Brew. Hailing from my own hometown of Nesconset on this island that is long, he's up at Bingo U, but that doesn't keep him from a sports knowledge. One of the greatest hockey players that your Smithtown-Hauppague Bulls have ever seen. He went to states, he went to natties. He's one of the most knowledgeable gentlemen to know hockey, a passionate Rangers fan. The ladies love him. He's a man rocket with one hell of a pipe, with so much more to say because he's really that amazing, but not enough time. He's also one of my best buddies. It's Brian H. Ruman. How's it going, bud?
Anthony, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Tony D Pod. Looking forward to it. I've heard the earlier ones. Happy to be on here and talking some Rangers hockey today. Am I the first guest here?
You would be on this pod itself.
Wow. So, definitely I feel the red carpet treatment. And, I guess this makes me the first friend of the program.
First time, long time. Let's get into that Rangers talk, bro. I'll let you start on the goalies.
Well, yeah. Obviously we're moving closer to a season here. Hopefully within a month we'll be playing. But at latest, hopefully they'll be playing by February 1st. Definitely exciting. I think at the end of the season last year, personally, I think the NHL did a great job, making sure the cup was awarded in a good way. And then, although the Rangers' exit was a little early, their work definitely didn't stop. I think they're in a good place with their goalie situation right now, but obviously the news that's going to dominate, the Rangers' goalie situation is it's going to be the first time in, 16 years that, the king isn't back there. So, it's different, but the time had to come to change. And although it's not surprising, it doesn't make it any easier to deal with.
Oh, for sure. It's just sad because, you grew up with having Hank, and it's just, established that day one he's going to be the starter. And then it's just weird that it's he's not there. It's just one of those consistencies. It's just gone.
Yeah, it's you take it for granted. And then, over the past few years, everyone knows that, the day is going to come where, he's not in the crease anymore. And then I sit here surrounded by Lundqvist pictures, knowing that he's down in DC, which is definitely tough. But I think it was the right move. I think it was a smart move. The Rangers have two great goalies, with most importantly a high ceiling, and Georgiev and Shesterkin, kind of in the pipeline now. And I know I'm excited to see a goaltending battle. I think that the goalies right now are in a great situation to give each of them the chance to earn the job. Give them each games, let them play against the good talent, let them play against the bad talent, and see kind of who takes over and who rises to the occasion. And then I think the Rangers will have enough, flexibility to make some decisions long term and a good enough sample size to have a better idea of who they got.
I do think that is a very good point there. That you do have two very capable fringe. Well, I call Georgiev a fringe starter because Shesty's probably getting the nod, at least for the future, as he's going to be the franchise goaltender, hopefully. But you do have two guys that are going to battle out, and hopefully they bring out the best in each other.
Yeah, I think you have to remember where the Rangers are as an organization, and where they are in their kind of their development and their rebuild. If you think about the rebuild that started 3 or 4 years ago now with the letter that came out,
for sure.
I think they're ahead of the timeline from that standpoint.
I think that's an easy to say that they're ahead of this. I don't think anybody thought a rebuild would take 2 years.
Yeah, for sure, but by no means are they out of it. So
for sure.
Why not give Georgiev the chance to win a spot? Why not? Why just hand it to Shesterkin when you have another person there? And you don't know what you have. And I think from a front office perspective, maybe very similar to the Talbot, that it's not really going to hurt them that much by playing him, but it could really help whether they try to ship him, whether they try to get more out of him, whether that's a skill that they just want to keep around. So I think, both of these guys should have a chance to prove themselves at least earlier on the season. And then based off of how the team's doing, take it from there. And maybe you work in some load management, and maybe you give one guy the nod day in and day out with the other one just giving them rest. I think the Rangers have a tremendous amount of ability to fit their needs, and it's a good place for them to be.
I do think that is like the modern NHL, though, because you see how important having your backup and where it's kind of like a goalie by committee,
Yeah, and I think it's a good argument to be made as to why the Rangers possibly didn't do as well in some of the earlier playoff runs with Lundqvist, in that he's playing 70+ games
Yep.
in the year before the Talbot days and before the Marty Biron days, when they didn't really, the early Torts days, they didn't really have a capable backup. And then when you get into the big drawn out dog days of the playoffs, they get tired, and just being ready to go every night is mentally and physically exhausting. So I think you could definitely tell the importance of giving these guys a few nights off every once in a while.
So who do you think is getting the start? Game one, and is going to be the starter for the majority of the season. And what's kind of the reasoning behind it?
I do think a lot of it's up to grabs. I think a lot has changed since August. Obviously, Georgiev and Shesterkin are both very young, so you don't know kind of what the past 4, 5, 6 months, how they've treated them, and how they're going to come into camp. I think overall, I think Shesterkin's going to get the nod on night one, game one.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think Georgiev's going to go game two. And, I think Quinn has been very good with reading out a lot of these younger guys, and obviously he's a college coach that is very big on player development, so I think he's going to keep a close eye on that and kind of change his lineup as he sees fit. I don't think that he's necessarily sitting at his desk right now making that call, because, like I said, he doesn't really have to, and there's an expectation that he doesn't, I think, too.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think the biggest part of that is that one of my things I've been thinking about is even the prospect of, even if Shesterkin's the starter, he might only be playing like 50 games this season as the true starter, where it's only a couple games, or even 50 might. Well, it's going to be a short season, so you only may end up getting like 5 more games or something as the true starter than Georgiev would, Yeah,
I think the current agreement that they're at right now is 56 games. So even if you do like a 60-40 split, that's going to be, that's going to be about like probably 32 games and 24 games, or, something around there. So so low 30s and then mid 20s, or mid 30s and mid 20s, something like that, where, both goalies should have a chance to prove what they got.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll transition over to the defense now, and I want to get your obviously your pairings, which I think most of them are going to be set in stone, and then kind of where you prioritize first, second, third line, other stuff like that.
Yeah, I think when you think about the Rangers roster, top to bottom, I think obviously they're incredibly young, and the one word that obviously keeps coming back up, to the front of your mind is potential. And I think you see that very much so on the defense. And I think I was very impressed last year with the amount of results that the Rangers got out of some of their young D-men. The 3 big names are D'Angelo, Fox, and Lindgren. And, I kind of personally, I see them kind of on a spectrum, whereas D'Angelo is your puck moving, offense first type guy. Fox is in the middle, and then you have your Lindgren, who's more of your traditional stay at home D-man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're growing into those roles, and the way that they are able to keep that development process moving forward will shape, I think, a lot of the identity that Coach Quinn is trying to build around this team.
Yeah, for sure. Now, going back to Lindgren, remember that Islanders game we were watching last year? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Who did he cross-check in the face?
I don't remember, but I think that's definitely he's definitely one of the edge guys, right? And I think obviously we'll get to it in a minute with Brandon Lemieux, but the Rangers try to pride themselves on this fast, physical, relentless brand of play, and physicality is definitely something that they don't have much of. So I think the edge that Lindgren plays with and the jam, which I think in particular the fans really enjoy and makes them a little bit more difficult to play with. I'd like to see, Brendan Smith continue that role. Brendan Smith's an interesting player in that he played defense his entire life and they moved him up to forward. And as a fourth line winger, he was able to play a very similar style of game. So I would like to see him, add a little more punch to the lineup and make them a little bit more difficult to play with, especially as we see, Trouba and D'Angelo and Fox to an extent really carry the puck a lot. We need someone to, balance that out as a physical presence on the blue line.
Yeah, for sure. Just because you need those sandpaper guys, because you're gonna get run on if you don't have any of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you think of the state of the league right now, and obviously, I think the most dominating characteristic of the league that's sought after is speed. But although there's a huge emphasis on speed, I think that creates a huge vacancy for physicality. And you look across the state with the Islanders, and they really have an identity on that fourth line that with Matt Martin, Cal Clutterbuck, and Casey Cizikas that they are incredibly difficult to play against, and that makes that team so much better. Even though the league is trending away from that, I think there's still a place for it in the game, and it makes it that much more important.
Yeah, especially you look at what Toronto was like the first half of last year. They were getting beat up every night. They weren't winning as many games. They had the coaching change up, and I feel like a lot of that attributes to the lack of physicality across all the lines and the defense.
Yeah, I mean, and look at how they spend their money with a majority of it.
Like 60% goes
to the Big Four.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pay Marner, you got to pay Nylander, you got to pay Tavares, and you got to pay Matthews. And at the end of the day, they're not winning in the playoffs, and that's just showing the importance of defense. Right? It's the old mantra: offense wins games, but defense wins championships. And those Toronto fans are getting restless because it's got to be, 40 years or so since their last cup.
Yeah, and Columbus was like the anti-Toronto in the playoffs.
Well, you know who's behind the bench in Columbus?
Oh yeah, Torts, baby. Sure, I'm surprised.
Talk about identity.
I'm surprised Brooksy didn't go out to ask him any questions.
Yeah, he might not be allowed within the city limits, and I'd have wanted posters all around Columbus.
Did you see all that? To get off topic for a second, did you see all that stuff about Manish Mehta?
I did not.
You know Manish Mehta, though, right? Did you ever hear of him?
He's the Mets beat guy, right?
No, he was the Jets beat guy.
The Jets
for New York Daily News. And the players, other reporters always hated him because he tried to ruin people like Muhammad Wilkerson. He basically talked to his mom and tried to get him thrown out of New York. And he was caught following the GM's son and was reporting it to the GM. He's like, "Oh, I'm watching your kid eat ice cream. It's chocolate flavored." So he got a restraining order and he got thrown off New York Daily News. But
yeah, I mean that's just an absurd thing to do.
that's just creepy.
There's nothing other. Well, why?
And this is This is a semi. It's not some scrub. This is an established reporter.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's not like he doesn't have access to the GM. You know what I mean? He could ask the GM any question.
Yeah, it's weird.
Along the same lines, is what is he thinking this is going to accomplish? There's legitimately, I can't think of a positive thing that's going to come out about this, and it's all negative. You know what I mean? What's in it for him? Nothing.
Yeah, not Nothing. To loop in Brooksy and Manish Mehta into the same category, but I love Brooksy. He always gets beat up at the bus stop. But yeah, so my favorite thing to talk about with these Rangers is this offense and some of these young guys on this offense. So I wanted to hear your situation and where you're putting Laugh and uh, if you got him in the top six, because a lot of people don't. And what do you got for running for the other lines there and some of the pairings?
Yeah, I mean, I think the offense is definitely the area with the most question marks. Definitely the area that's most exciting and most interesting to think about. I look at it as there's certain players that are going to have to and deservedly stay where they are from last year, and then it's how do you fill in around there, right? So on the first line, like Zibanejad and Kreider, for every reason under the sun, they deserve to stay together. It worked last year. The word I always use to describe Zibanejad is dynamic. He changes the game. He changes how the ice looks. And I think Kreider's ability to play below the dots, below the line, and in front of the net, and along the wall really opens up the middle of the ice for Zibanejad. So, they have to stay together. They just signed Strome to I think what a great steal that was for them. So keep him
I
with.
don't know how they got him back. I did not think he was coming back.
I didn't think so either, especially, who they had and some of the moves they were, going to be able to make. But he played well with Panarin, and I think a very underrated skill is being able to play with some of these top-end guys. And like I said, it worked last year. There's no reason to split them up, so I would expect Strome to be in the kind of center two spot with Panarin on the wing. The third line, I think the only definite you have is Hedel as third line center.
Mhm.
I think, in the future he could be the Rangers, second center guy, but he's not ready to make that transition to accept that type of responsibility. For years now, the Rangers haven't had a good center, and that unfortunately isn't going to change. And then, I mean, on the fourth line, from an identity standpoint, Lemieux is going to be there, and I think he really has to the lead that line in whatever direction it goes.
Mhm.
And I hope he continues to do it, because similar to the Brendan Smith thing, or similar to the Ryan Lindgren position, you got to make the Rangers a little bit more difficult to play against. I know they drafted the kid, was it 23rd or 17th or something? They moved up to draft. He should help beef him up, although he's not going to be ready to play soon. But, like looking down the line, that should help. And then once you kind of have that framework, I think it becomes very interesting to see where your Lafreniere, where your Kratzovs, and where your Kakos are going to go. Personally, I have Lafreniere, on the third line.
Mhm. I think you start him there. I think that's a good idea. Make him earn his
Yeah,
minutes.
earn him and definitely give him ice. I think give him time on the power play.
Yep.
His best quality has got to be his puck handling.
All right. I
So,
think
let him handle the puck. If you put him up on the first line with Zibanejad and Kreider, or if you put him on the second line with Strome and Panarin, one or two things is going to happen. One, Lafreniere is going to handle the puck, and then we're just wasting the talent of Zibanejad and Panarin. Or two, Panarin and Zibanejad are going to handle the puck, and then we're not developing Lafreniere. Give him a chance, allow him to have some responsibility out there in a relatively small role,
Mhm.
and see how he develops. And I think, Buchnevich could stay with Zibanejad and Kreider for right now. Who knows? Maybe we try Kako with Strome and Panarin, but he's still someone that I think has to find his footing a little bit. But I mean, overall, the offensive side of the Rangers are going to be very exciting to figure out.
For sure. And one thing I actually wanted to see is a little out of the box, but like you talked about how good Lafreniere is with the puck, and he just and the passing, and it just reminds me so much of a center. And like I'd love to see, like it's so weird to me that he's not a center because he plays like a center, but he just lines up left of the puck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I wish he was a center, especially given the premium that the league puts on good and
Exactly.
puck controlling centers now. But I mean, this early in his career and all that, I think he should stay exactly where he is. There are dominant wings in this league that
For
that
sure.
change the game. The Rangers have one of them in Panarin. You think about Ovechkin. Ovechkin's a winger, right? You think of Huberdeau. I think Huberdeau might play the middle. But things like that, where he can still have a great career and a huge impact on the team from where he is. And I think given the pressure that he's gonna at least feel that he's gonna be under, and especially playing in New York and everything comes along with that, the last thing that might be good for him, that the last thing I think you'd want to do with him is now all of a sudden put him in a new position where the responsibilities increased, especially in the D zone. Um, so I think start him on the wing and then see where he fits in, and who knows, a month into the season maybe he goes to the top six if he's playing there, or maybe he goes to Hartford. I wouldn't be obviously I wouldn't love it, but if they think that's how he's gonna develop best with giving him more time and giving him a better chance to make that transition to the NHL level, then maybe the AHL should be where he's at.
I agree with you. I think you saw that with Samakako last year with maybe he should have started in Hartford just so he can get his confidence, get a little more puck handling, because I don't think he was utilized too well by Quinn last year. So that's what I want to ask you too, is what are your expectations for Kako? What do you want to see out of him? What do you want Quinn to do with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think the transition from from an amateur level of playing to, or a European level of playing to the NHL is so huge. And to touch on the defense a little bit, the transition that Fox made from NCAA hockey to the NHL, and he did it so seamlessly, and being able to control the puck and his stick position in the defensive zone was all so well done. I think we kind of take that for granted. Like with Kako, he's coming from a place where legitimately he played on different ice. It's a
100%.
different size.
Yeah.
Right. And as a winger, that changes everything. And as a forward that relies on goal scoring and time and space and moving your feet and changes of speed, that changes everything. So for me with Kako, it's just that continuous adjustment to the NHL and finding his role, because I think his role that he played in Europe is going to be extremely different than, or not, maybe not extremely, but noticeably different than whatever role he takes on in the NHL. And that's why I think it was good they sent him to Hartford, although maybe a little bit too late last year. It gives him a chance to kind of explore a little bit more.
Yeah, because you've seen glimpses of how well he can play when he's like aggressive and like finally finds his stride out on the ice, and you can see he's got that, potentially star capabilities inside him.
Yeah, I mean the skill definitely is not in question there.
Yeah,
and it's something that I think it all comes with time, and looking at the Rangers as a team as a whole, time is something that as of right now they have. Nobody wants to rush a rebuild. I don't think they are, and I don't think they should. The experience playing in the play-in games at the beginning of the bubble last year, I think was positive experience. Obviously, it wasn't as long as we may have hoped without even getting a win up in Toronto. But, all these things are different learning experiences and different building blocks to what, for a team that has looks like has a very bright future ahead of them.
Yeah, that's definitely their bright spot, is this youth and this youth movement and how fast this rebuild has been going for them. Because like we talked about before, I don't think anybody thought that we'd be in this situation where we're so far ahead of where we were. Don't forget, we jumped up huge with Kako last year, and we jumped up huge with Lafreniere this year. So it definitely helps to get some luck on your side at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. So hopefully we can be lucky now and good later.
Yeah, and I think that'll send us home for this episode, unless there's anything you want to add on any.
Yeah, I mean, the inaugural guest on the Tony D Pod. I mean, this is going straight on the resume, straight on the mantle. And, this was fun. Go Rangers.